we are back, and tonight I want to talk a little bit more about Myfitnesspal specifically. If you have been coming to the classes, if you've read the emails that I sort of passed through, yes, with every single one of our challenges, I do provide a food plan where there's specific foods to eat at specific times, and this is essentially much more to actually help people gain some consistency, to, I guess, help people find their rhythm and their routine without having to think too much. But the research and everything, it shows a hell of a lot more that it matters a lot less. And I'm one of those people, when it comes to fat loss, I want to be doing the least amount of work that is needed to make it happen. And what it usually shows is that we don't necessarily need to eat specific foods at specific times to achieve the goals that a lot of us are looking for. What is important is that the calories do become consistent in our diet, and we find a way to create that calorie deficit that I've spoken about in Fat Loss Fundamentals, and I've spoken about in a lot of other places, that is the number one thing. So once you start getting into meal timings and specific macros in specific meals and when to eat around your workout, all of that is sort of like the 2%ers or the 5%ers. But if we're not getting the calories right from the beginning, we're going to struggle a lot more. So especially when the main goal is fat loss. The other things, the meal timings and everything like that, become a lot more important when the goal is to build a lot of muscle, or when the goal is to, to help with specific gut dysbioses and specific gut problems, and that's where you want to be looking at some other stuff. But this is what I want people to get out of this challenge the most, is essentially to gain control over their weight, over their body, make sure they feel good, confident, and no matter when the time has come, when the time comes for you to lose a little bit of body fat, whether it's for a wedding, whether it's for a holiday, we know how to do it and we feel confident on how to do it. So one of the most easiest ways to actually make sure this happens is to get confident with Myfitnesspal, and that's what we're going to sort of go through today. I'm not going to make this video too long. I don't want this to be an overload worth of information. What I really want this to be is a quick, hopefully 10 to 15 minute video going through the basically the things that are important on Myfitnesspal, the things that are not important, the things that I'm looking for, how to change your goals, and just a few other things like that. All right, I'm going to be using the web browser version. I will open up my my phone a few times to show you what it looks like on the phone, because I think that's where a lot of us are going to be using it more often. But it works exactly the same, and it even has some slightly cooler features on the phone, which I do want to go through, like scanning barcodes and things like that. Okay, so we'll get straight into it. Where are we? Boom. All right, so we go to myfitnesspal.com. right? I've logged in. You can use Facebook, you can use whatever you need to create an account. As you can see right now, 2650 is what mine is set at. Now, for purposes, this is for me, this is a little bit more of a maintenance thing. Now that I'm going to be looking to drop more fat and go into more of a deficit, I'm going to go ahead and change that. So if we go to home, and on the phone we go into settings, I'll just get this up so I can do it on both. So if we go to more in our phone, on the far right side, and then we go to goals, which is about 5 or 6 down. It has our current weight, our goal weight, our weekly goal, all of these things. For purposes, especially when you're working with a coach and I'm telling you, for example, I want you to eat 1600, 1900 or 2100 calories, all right? All of that means a little bit less. When you're trying to let it work out and do all the math for you, that's when you can decide and put in what numbers you want. I don't think how they set it out is perfect specifically, just because it's a little bit harder to follow. But basically, if we go into, so we're going to go into goals, right? And then we can go to calories 2650, and it tells you the numbers of which we have here. So I'm going to go ahead and edit that. Okay. Now, for myself, usually when I want to go on a fat loss phase, I usually like to start a little bit lower than usual, which I have done for most of you as well. I could probably go to maybe 2400 and still lose a little bit of body fat, But when I'm doing a fat loss phase, I like it to be a little bit more aggressive. I like to see the results faster. I like to actually see it happen a little bit quicker than usual. So I'm going to go ahead and put that at 2100. Okay. Now, the only problem with all of this is when we have the free version and you're not paying for the premium, we can only set it up as a rate of percentage, okay, which is a little bit harder to get the exact amount, and you have to do a little bit of fiddling around with it. So for my specific plan, I like to go somewhere between 160 to 180 grams of protein. My fats usually sit pretty good around 50 to 60 grams of fat, and then carbohydrates is whatever is left over. So that's how you should always start yours. You start by getting the amount of protein you want, right? So for me, I'm going to go ahead and let's try, what does 35% look like? 184, yeah, that's about right. If I go to 30%, 158. Look, when I'm going on a fat loss phase, I like to go a little bit higher to preserve the muscle mass that I do have and make sure I come out shredded. So I'm going to go ahead and put that up at 35%, 184 grams of protein right there. Okay. Now my fat, I need a little bit higher than that. You usually want to go about 1 gram per kilo of body weights. You can go a little bit under that. Anywhere is about 0.6 grams per kilogram of body weight. So I'm going to go ahead, and if it's on 15 at the moment, if I go to 20, 47, I'll go one more, 58. What's one more look like? If I go to 30%, 70. I'm going to go ahead and put it at 70 grams. Like I said, I probably could have gone at the 60 grams, but it doesn't matter because our calories are going to be equated. So as you can see, I'm 125% at the moment, which means I need to drop this back down to 35% to create that 100, which means I'm going to be allowed 185 grams of carbs. Now, this is where a lot of individualization comes in, because you can decide whether you are the type of person who prefers having slightly higher fat, so you prefer, instead of always having to have, because what you got to remember is that this is going to dictate the kind of foods you can eat, right? So if I put my fat too low, it means I probably won't be able to have, like whole eggs. I'll probably have to stick to things like egg whites. I won't be able to have steaks, which I tend to enjoy a little bit more, and that's where I like having my fat just that little bit higher, so I can enjoy those foods. And my carbohydrates normally suffer from that, which means I get a hell of a lot less rice or potato or other things like that. So I could potentially make a switch and go around, and what the studies have shown is that the amount of fat loss given from when the protein is equated, if fats are higher or carbs are higher and vice versa, one's lower, it doesn't make a hell of a lot of difference. So we get to sort of muck around with that, and I would suggest picking one that where you set your protein and fat first and let the carbs be the rest. And if you feel like you need more carbs in your diet within those calories, then having a look at switching that up. Okay, so I'm going to start there. That looks good to me, so I'm going to save those changes. All right, so that's all there. So as you can see, it has all the micronutrients, it has calories by meal, anything that's stuck behind that golden lock on the computer or the phone. That means it's hidden behind the premium, and they do help if you want to really take this seriously and you want to use this on your own to create some different meal plans and things like that. Then it would be worth, for at least 1 month or 2 months, getting the premium version and trying them out, because they do help. You can sort of set aside certain calories per meal. You can have different calorie goals per day, which is something that we do with more experienced athletes, which is like high calorie days and low calorie days, which tends to help out a lot as far as keeping it a little bit more fresh when you're dieting. So all of those things can help. All right. So once that's set up, that's pretty much all we need to do. So we're going to go ahead and go to home. So now it says 2100, perfect. All right, now we're going to go to the food tab. All right, so this is for today. I left it specifically so I can go through it together with you now. All right, so once I start going to add in, for this morning, I was home today. I didn't have to go out too far, so I literally just had 2 hard-boiled eggs. So as you can see, every time you put in a food or an ingredient, it actually comes up here, right? So it all it all logs as you go. So for me, I could just click egg and then you know, one large, one medium, one extra large, whichever one it was. It was a large egg today, and 2 of them. But just so you can see, if I click on that, I type in eggs, right, and then it'll come up here. Now, as you can see, anything that has that little green tick usually means that it's been approved by the Myfitnesspal team. The calories are correct, it's standardized, and so there, if it is available, it's usually a pretty good one to go with. And as you can see, they're all relatively consistent. Some are slightly higher, slightly lower. You know, whichever one you decide to pick is the one that you want to just keep consistent. So once, you know, if you're just having eggs and they're all similar, you know, you get the same brand, you're just going to literally click on that. You're going to go across. I had one large, so over here you can see each serving size is one large, right? And one serving equals one large. So I had 2 servings of one large. So in other words, I had 2 hard-boiled eggs. Okay, nice and simple. You can click on the nutrition info and it will give you a bit of an idea on what it is. So 143 calories, 10 grams of fat, 3 grams of saturated, blah, 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 that doesn't really matter, 1 gram of carbs, and 13 grams of protein. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and add that to the food diary. All right, and I actually also had this morning, along with that, a Musashi Shred and Burn protein shake. So if I go ahead right now, type in Musashi Shred and Burn, burn protein, perfect. All right, so as you can see, it wasn't actually the top one because I had the drink version. Okay, so here it says 1 scoop, which means it's talking about the protein powder. This is the protein here, 137 calories. That is the one. All right, that's the one that I'm looking for here. But just so you can see, Shred and Burn 100 gram, 404 calories. So you can see, this is where it can sometimes get a little bit tricky for people because they're like, oh, which one do I choose? You just have to know which one, and especially if you've bought it from somewhere and you can check the back, right? So here I had the chocolate one, Shred and Burn protein chocolate. Here, I'll click on the nutrition info, make sure it's all correct. So yeah, correct. 4 grams of carbs, correct. 20 grams. Oh, that's actually not correct. My one is actually a little bit higher than that, so that one's not actually the one I'm looking for. Let's have a look at this one here. Nutrition info 22. No, Musashi Shred and Burn. Scoop, Shred and Burn vanilla, chocolate. Shred and Burn protein shake, nutrition info. Yes, this is the one I'm looking for. Okay, so it's got the 4 grams of fat, 4 grams of carbs, 32 grams of protein. That's the one. So usually they have them there, but it's not always the first one. It depends on how you type it in. It depends on which it is. I will go through how to do the barcode as well, but I thought this would just be a good idea to show you that it's not always the first one. You have to sift through a little bit and have a look for it. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and add that to the food diary. Cool. It double added there, so I will get rid of that. Perfect. All right, so you can see I've got 45 grams of protein in so far, 14 grams of fat, 5 grams of carbs, and that's my first meal. As I've said in the past, I like to have a very low carb breakfast in whichever way that means, whether it's eggs, steak, maybe some peanut butter and a protein shake, whatever it is, but low carb, little moderate fat, high protein, always. Okay. Now for lunch, I was a little bit lazy for lunch today. So I actually had the Core Meal Holy Meatballs, Core Power Foods Holy Meat Balls. Sorry about that. Okay. So you can see there, Core Power Foods, Holy Meatballs. These are all looking very, what's the word? Very equal, you know, very standard. So I'm going to go ahead and click the top one, Quickly check the nutrition info. 36 grams of carbs, 49 grams of protein. Yep, perfect. All right, and I'm going to go ahead and add that to the food diary. That is. Now, I was also a little bit hungry, and I actually had a bigger cheese string at lunchtime as well. So I'm going to go ahead and add that in. Going to search for that. 2% cheese, tasty cheese. Cheese stringer, that's the one. 20 grams, 63 calories. Quickly check the nutrition info. That is the one. Perfect. Add to food diary and bring it in. Okay, so you basically just go down all the way through and you sort of set this up. So I'm on 829 calories so far. So I've actually still got a fair bit of way to go. So core power food, cheese stringer, that looks pretty good. Now I actually haven't had dinner yet. I'm going to go and train. I'm going to have some dinner. So what I'm having tonight is I'm having a oyster blade steak. Okay, so if I go down, where is it? Here is where I've done it plenty of times. 150 grams. So as you can see here, 100 grams, right, is the serving size, and I had 150 grams total. So 1.5 is the one that I want to add, right? And we are also having some sweet potato. No, sorry, we're having the spud light potato. So I'll go ahead and add this one in. Add checked. Okay. And then I'm going to search spud light. Perfect. All right, so now when people have asked me, do we weigh our food raw or do we weigh our food cooked? That depends, especially if you're tracking, right? If you're just reading my plan, then I do want you to weigh it uncooked. But sometimes, as you can see here, spud light potatoes 250 grams cooked, right? So I'm gonna have that a little bit later, so I can have a look, see if that's about how much I need. 22 grams of carbs. Probably need a little bit more than that. I'm probably because it's going to be after working out. I'm going to put that up a little bit higher, and I'm going to go 1.5 servings of that. Check the nutrition info. Now we've got 33 grams of carbs. That'll work well. All right, and bring that in. Okay, so I'm on 1200. As you can see, not quite enough just yet. So the other things I had today. So for a snack, I did have 2 mandarins. So if I type in mandarins, this is where it gets a little bit hard to get it right, but once again, you want to find roughly, as you can see, they're all around. So some are 80 calories, some are 100 calories, some are 47. If you have the brand, that always helps. Usually the ones that say generic are a pretty good one to go with. I'm going to go ahead and Delmont, calorie off 30 grams. I'm going to check out this first one. Nutrition info. 9 grams of carbs. Yeah, so that's about right? So for about 1 piece of fruit, that should be what you're looking at. Anywhere between, 7 to 15 grams of carbs is usually what you can get for 1 piece of fruit. So I had 2 of those today. 2 servings. I'm going to add that to the food diary. Okay, 1325. I also had a YoPro yogurt drink. Oh, not the drink, the little tubs. So if I type in YoPro, you can see the yogurt, 1 packet, 115. I think that's correct. 14 grams of protein, 9 grams of sugars, 11 grams of carbs. Yes, that is the one. So add that to the food diary. Okay. Oh, I actually forgot. So you really have to remember that you've got to add in everything here. So as you can see, I haven't been too good at that because the things that I've forgotten so far. So I did use olive oil spray, right, to cook the... This is where sometimes people say, I have you know, I'm tracking all my calories, I'm way under, and I'm still not losing weight. What's going on? This can be sometimes where the problem goes wrong. So generic olive oil spray, nutrition info, yeah, that's good. Add to food diary. Okay, and I also did the same thing for dinner, which I forgot about. All right, which is not good because it would show me that I was way under my calories when that probably wasn't the case, right? So we got to make sure that we add in everything here. Okay, it's not there, so olive oil spray. I definitely used a little bit more here with my steak. I sprayed it a little bit harder than I had to with eggs, so I'm going to be generous and just give myself 2 servings of that. And bring that up. So if we have a look, I've still got 570 calories left, 79 grams of carbs to go, 21 grams of fat, and 35 grams of protein. So basically what I'm going to have to do is for tonight, I'm going to go ahead and add in an extra protein shake that I'm going to have when I get home. I'll probably just have the same one, Musashi Shred and Burn Chocolate. This one here was the one that we used last time. Add to food diary. Yep, that's good. Okay, 389 calories. And what I'll probably have for after snack as well, after dinner, is one of my favorite things, Quest Bar Caramel Chunk, which is one of my favorites. So I'm gonna go ahead and add that in. Okay, cool. So look, that's pretty much, I can't see myself eating more than that today. As you can see, I'm actually at 1900 calories. I'm not at 2100. My carbs, I still have around 50 grams left over. Same for the fat, I ended up only getting 60, and my protein was over by 17. Now, some of you may look at this and be like, well, you didn't hit all your calories, you know, what are we gonna do? Now, you have to remember what your particular goal is, right? So my particular goal right now is fat loss. So if I eat like this, my protein is correct. I actually ended up hitting 200 grams of protein today. Well, estimated to reach 200 grams of protein if I do everything that I say I'm going to do and have the extra Quest bar and the steak and everything else like that, right? So I've actually exceeded my protein limit, which is, in my opinion, very, very rarely a bad thing. You know, we have to remember where we stand with it all. Now, if I was talking to a bodybuilding athlete who was going to be stepping up on stage very soon, I would be a lot more strict with that and say, look, we need to find a way that it's going to fit, okay? So we need to sort of muck around with a few things, and it's very easy to get very neurotic with Myfitnesspal and make sure that everything's like right on the gram perfect. This is not, I don't want people to get to that point. It's fun to do it at the start, right? But if you start to get you know, any form of anxiety, or you know, you change the way you eat because of it, then it's probably not the best thing for you, right? And we sort of need to look at it a little bit differently. But what I see here is a pretty good day, because I tended to be under. Now, if I was to, I'm going to go through something just quickly to finish this, but this is basically how you track, right? And it breaks you down. So how many, all the calories and stuff that came from your snacks, from your dinner, from your lunch, for your breakfast, and you get to muck around with that, right? So this is how I'm going to eat. I'm happy with that. Like I said, 200 calories under. I'm not too worried about that, because even if it is under more than what it could have been, that just means I will potentially lose a little bit more than I was going to. So I'm going to go ahead and complete this entry. Okay. Then it will tell you a number. Like if you ate like this every day, I'd be 79.2 kilos in 5 weeks. I wouldn't take this to heart. You know, sometimes people see this and it gets them really excited, but then when the 5 weeks comes and they're not there, it's like, what the hell happened? Because as you can see, and what I had to do here, not everything is down to the gram perfect. This is saying that if literally every single bit of meal, every single food, every single ingredient was exactly down to the gram, exactly like this, you would be very likely to lose that amount of weight. Now, that could change if I change my brand of protein shake. That could change if I get jumbo eggs instead of normal eggs. That'll change if I change the type of core meal that I eat on a day-to-day basis. If I choose a different meat for dinner. If I choose a different fruit. It all matters, right? Even though you can still be eating healthy, it might slow that rate down. So I wouldn't worry about it too much unless you're eating exactly the same every single day. Okay? So, cool. I'm very happy with that. You can view the full report, right, which it'll come into, and it's like a printable one where it'll sort of break down everything that you're going to eat throughout the day, which can be good for you, right? Because what I actually recommend that you do is do this in advance, similar to how I did my dinner, right? So instead of doing it at the end of the day when you're trying to remember everything that's come through, it is much, much easier to do it the night before, do it the day before, do it at the start of the week, so that you have a plan, and then you can literally print this out, you can take this to Coles, and you can buy all your food based on this, right? Because you know it hits your macros and your calories. You can stick this on your fridge and it tells you exactly where you're going to be and where you need to be, right? So that is why I like Myfitnesspal. I don't necessarily like people tracking every single day unless they are competing or they're in a physique sport. That's where it's a little bit different. But for this in particular and for our goals, what I think is a much more sustainable thing to do, and what I think is I just think it's a better way to go, is to do it once, right? Fill this out once so you can get this little page, right? And then you go ahead and print this, and then we take this to Coles and we use this to cook. Or you send me this, right? You send me all of this, and I can turn around and be like, hey, this is actually perfect, right? This is where I want it. And I can turn around to you and say, if you sent this to me and I told you were meant to be on 2100 calories, I would say, okay, cool. So fats are a little bit low. As I said, we could probably bring them up a little bit. So how would you feel about adding, so essentially 200 calories, 10 grams of fat? We're probably looking at maybe, the funny thing is, you know, it seems like when you look at that and you think, oh wow, 200 calories, I've got plenty to go. In reality, that's probably 1.5 tablespoons of peanut butter. And then we're on the macros perfectly. That'll give us the fat up to about 70 grams. That'll put my calories up to 2,050, and we're pretty much there. So it's not like I'm way away from my goal and what I was after. I'm literally talking about 1 tablespoon or 1.5 tablespoons of peanut butter, and I would be perfect in the macros. Now, if I'm under those macros, just because I could eat more, does that mean I should eat more? If you're in a physique sport, potentially, because we need to make sure that everything goes perfectly to plan and everything is predictable. Our body understands what's meant to be going on. For someone who is just looking to tone up, lose a little bit of that body fat and do it fast, right? And not having to drag out this process of, you know, dieting and, you know, calculating and all of this stuff, then I would argue that it's just better to leave it. Let it be that little bit under, because you know, we all know what happens on the weekend, right? This is fine for a Tuesday afternoon. This is a good day for a Tuesday. But do you think I'm going to eat exactly like this on the weekend, on Saturday? We'd like to tell ourselves we're going to, but it's very easy to sit down and have some Red Rock Deli chips and to, you know, go out and or have 1 drink of alcohol or do any of that, and then boom, there's your 200 calories, there's your 500 calories, and then all of a sudden, even though you were down 200 calories on one day, you're now 500 to 600 calories over for the week. So you're getting a net gain of a couple of 100 grams. Now, that's where it gets very tough, and why the consistency is important when you're coming to actually using Myfitnesspal. So I want you to keep that in mind. You know, this is how you get to have freedom with your food. You get to turn around and put all your, as you can see, I'm very The difference with me and a difference with a lot of other people is that I'm extremely simple when it comes to food. I'm not the kind of person that needs to change my diet every single day. I'm not the type of person that likes to add in a million different ingredients to my food. And I think it works well for fat loss, because when you put too much pressure on trying to add in a lot of different things and everything else, it gets extremely hard. And so the simpler you can make your diet, the better. Okay. Look, I don't want this to go on too much longer. I want to go through a few things because I've basically gone through everything that's important for Myfitnesspal. You'll also notice that there's things like exercise, where you can put in how much you exercise, and you can sort of estimate how many calories you burn during exercise, and that will take it off your goal or off your calorie amount so that you can eat more food. Now, I don't personally recommend doing this. I don't recommend putting in your exercise into Myfitnesspal to counteract the amount of food you can eat. That is not what we're trying to do here. We're trying to get a consistent diet and let the exercise be something separate too, right? So that adds gravy on top. But if you're losing your unit calorie deficit, right, and then you're going ahead and training and you're putting that extra, and you're saying, oh yeah, I burnt 300, my Apple Watch told me I burnt 350 calories during my weight session, and you go ahead and put that in, you're now putting yourself much closer to that maintenance or gaining level where you're not going to see the results as quickly. So I don't recommend adding it into here. I would rather you actually track it through Google Sheets, or track it through a separate workout planner or something like that. Will give much better results than trying to use this to offset your calories on another day. So that's something that's not necessarily too important. We're going to notice here that there's like a lot of sugar and sodium, and it actually goes through and gives you essentially all the different vitamins and things like that you were meant to have. So it says here that was my sodium. So I had 2,500 milligrams of sodium, which is not too bad. 22 grams of sugar, 29 grams of fiber. Look, for right now, I mean, that's stuff that could be important to me personally to know, but for you, I think it's a little bit less important, especially if this is your first time coming and tracking Myfitnesspal and using this as a tool. Don't worry about those things just yet. Let's just worry about how many calories are we consuming and how do we actually start to manipulate, right? Because if let's say for lunch I had all of that, and I actually was working today, right? And I would go ahead and I actually got some sushi, which is something that I regularly do. So on top of all the food that I've already eaten, I usually get a chicken sushi. Let's see what comes up. Chicken sushi roll, chicken teriyaki. Let's see if it's got the one that I actually have. This is probably the closest one, the crispy chicken roll, white rice. I would say that's probably the closest, right? And now I'm going to go ahead, and I usually get 2 to 3 of those. Just for argument's sake, I'm going to go ahead and put 3 servings, and I'm going to go ahead and add that to the food diary, right? So you can see straight away, boom, that puts me straight up to 2,500 calories. Okay, so now I'm much more in a net gain, and all of these, now it's giving me all reds across the board, right? My carbs is over, my fats is over, my protein's over. Everything's looking not too great. 23 grams of fat and 26 grams of protein, okay? So now it's not looking anywhere near as good. So now, like I said, imagine I'm doing this for tomorrow and I'm trying to work out, all right, I'm actually going to do this tomorrow, and I've put in all this food, but I haven't eaten it yet. Now it gives me a chance to be like, okay, look, I really like that. I really like having sushi on the days that I work. I think it just makes me feel a little bit like I'm fuller. I've got, it's going to be a little bit nicer. It gives me a little bit of energy, and I don't want to have to worry about cooking or anything like that. So what am I going to have to do to bring it down to that 2,100? Now, I could probably go without the YoPro. I'm going to go ahead and delete that. I've actually got 2 protein shakes in here. I'm probably going to get rid of that too. Okay, let's bring that down. Let's see what happens. So we have a look here. So my protein's pretty much on point now. I'm still 175 calories over, 23 grams of carbs, 7 grams of fat. So I have to start going through here and having a look here. Oh, would you look at that? my Quest bar is pretty much directly on that amount of calories, carbs, and fat. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and delete that. Okay, beautiful. All right, so as you can see, my calorie amount has now stabilized. My carb amount is perfect. My fat amount is perfect. My protein is a little bit low, right? So I wouldn't say this is a perfect day for me. But what I can say is that I'm still within the range. As I said from the very beginning, between 160 to 180 grams of protein is where I need to keep it for myself. And for yourself, if you want to find out what that number is for you, you want to be having a look at the number that I've given you on your food plan, and it's sort of plus or minus about 15 grams from there is where you want to be ranging. Okay, so 160 grams. Look, for a day where I'm actually going to be eating, so I've still got my 2 eggs, protein. I've got my, I've got a core power meal, Coles oyster blade steak, some stuff. Still got my mandarins and a crispy chicken, 3 pieces of sushi. And that's probably being a little bit too. That's been a bit generous. I probably didn't need that many. I could probably go ahead and change that to say 2 servings, right? So maybe if I want to get it like perfect, let's see what happens. So let's change that to 2. So instead of getting 3 tomorrow, I'm only going to get 2 pieces of sushi. All right, so I'm going to save it. Now I've got a little bit more room. My protein now is a little bit too low, but maybe that means now I can go ahead and add back that Quest bar because they've got slightly better calories, slightly better macro amounts. Not there. Quest bar. Add that in. Perfect. Now have a look at that. So I'm only 50 calories under now. My carbs is pretty much on point, plus or minus 10 grams. My fat is pretty much perfect, and my protein is looking a lot better. All right. So you see how those tiny little changes and just getting that to muck around with can get you to look something right. And so now tomorrow I know exactly what I'm going to do. Right, it's all set out for me, ready to go. I don't have to worry. I don't have to, get to lunchtime and look around and be like, oh shit, I didn't pack my lunch or anything like that. It's all there, ready to go. All right, and so this is a really easy way to make sure that you're staying on track. Right now that I've done this actually sounds very doable, and I actually haven't done this. I haven't put in these exact foods like for example today, and I'm actually very happy with those numbers, and I'm happy with the amount of food that I'm eating there. So I'm going to go ahead and actually eat like this tomorrow, and I'm probably going to try and keep this for the rest of the week. I'm not going to change it. I'm just going to leave it as is. Right, so I'm going to just have my eggs for breakfast with a protein shake. I'm going to have my power meal. I'll probably drop the stringer maybe every now and again because that's just, I was a little bit hungry sitting at home today. Oyster blade for dinner with some potato. It all looks good to me, right? And you can look at that and be satisfied with the amount that you're eating and what you're eating, which is most important. Now, you might go ahead and find, oh shit, I actually, when you go and put in your food, it's not as much as you thought it was going to be. It happens, right? And that can be a problem. You don't want it to be too low. So I don't want to be sitting on, 900 calories or 1,000 calories every day. And the chances are, if Myfitnesspal says you're eating that much, but you're not losing the weight that you think you should, I'm going to go ahead and make a bullish call here and say that you're probably not tracking a 100% correctly. And it's very easy to, like I did before, miss the olive oil, miss the certain, even sometimes herbs and spices and things like that can buck around with it a little bit. So that's what you sort of need to look out for. And yeah, once you've sort of set this up right, so if I know this, I can actually, I can go quick tools and I can actually remember the meal, right? So then I can call it whatever I want, right? And so then when I go and add it in for tomorrow and the next day, if I'm going to, or I want to just use it maybe in the following week where I'm going to do it again, it's just got it right there ready to go, right? And then you just have to click on it and I can just call that, like cutting breakfast, Save my meal and Boom. All right, so now whenever I go into that and I'm going to go do it for the next day, add my food, I go to my meals just here, and there at the bottom there is my cutting breakfast. Okay, and then check it. Didn't add it. There it is. Beautiful. Okay. And there it is. And then you can start doing the next day, right? And then you can put in whatever you want for lunch and for dinner or anything else. Everything else on here, the community, the apps, all of that other stuff means very little. So don't let it confuse you. Don't let it stray you from what you're trying to achieve here. All of this means nothing. I want this just to be a tracking tool, a resource tool for you, so that you don't have to be constrained to a specific diet all the time, right? That's not what the goal of it, that shouldn't be how people live, all right? What it should be is for people to actually, you know, have freedom within constraints, right? It's almost like me putting up a barrier and saying, all right, you have to be somewhere between here and somewhere in between here. Whatever you do in between there is up to you. And that's how it should be. It shouldn't be, you need to be on this dot right here. And I understand that some people need that, right? I understand that, you know, having to think about all of this stuff when you're doing it can be extremely tough, and it can be extremely, you know, taxing on the rest of your day. And I don't necessarily like that for some people, and that's where it comes down to a personality and, you know, where you are in your life. If you've got a very stressful job, it's just easier for me to tell you, all right, just eat this, and you're like, cool, and then you go and buy it, and it's that simple. But I'm looking for sustainable long-term results for you and for everyone that I work with. I'm not looking for this quick fix, you know, I'm just going to tell you what to do and you're going to do it for 3 or 4 weeks and then I never hear from you again because you weren't able to stick to it, and then it's game over, right? This is about teaching you everything you need so that you can do this for a very long time. Okay, so that you can do this for the rest of your life, and anytime you need to go on a fat loss phase, boom, you bring this up, you see what worked in the past, and then you repeat it and you do it again. That's what this game is all about. Look, I hope this helps. I said I only wanted this to be a 10 to 15 minute video, and look what happened. I really can't help myself. I really hope this has helped you guys, and I'm going to go ahead and leave it there. Any more questions arise from this, I'm more than happy to elaborate, explain, do another video, whatever I need to do. But I just wanted to get through the absolute basics of what I need people to know when they're going through Myfitnesspal. All right. That has been it for me. This class this weekend, for anyone who's made it this far, is Thursday at 6 p.m. I hope to see you all there. And yeah, this has been really fun doing this challenge this time around. People are really taking it really well. The weight is just falling off people, which makes me really happy. There's also some other people that are just seeing incredible strength gains as well by actually learning how to track their workouts. It's just all seems to be falling into place, and I can't wait to see what happens for the rest of the 6 weeks, guys. Keep it up, and I'm going to go ahead and leave it there. All right, have a good one.